Now joined by TSN Hockey Insider Chris Johnston and our Edmonton Oilers reporter Ryan Rishaug. Ryan, the last two times Stuart Skinner played in Florida, he was pulled. Our TSN Hockey Insider Darren Dreger reporting he will start Game 6. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You know, I think if you look at the three things you might consider, the past, the present, and the future, to me it makes sense for sure in two of the three. Stuart Skinner has been in this situation 4 times with the Stanley Cup in the building. He's won 3 of those games, right? Makes sense. He's been in this moment. If you think Stuart Skinner is your goaltender, your franchise goaltender moving forward, you probably have to give him this start and give him an opportunity. And when you think about Stuart Skinner's last pull, he didn't get pulled because they thought he was terrible. That was a momentum pull. So it doesn't surprise me, CJ, that there's still some confidence in Stuart Skinner to go back to him, but a lot of conversations happening behind the scenes in making this decision.
Yeah, that's maybe the surprise for me is Chris Knobloch mentioned how many people had a voice in the decision, right from Stan Bowman to Paul Coffey, Dustin Schwartz, and even said the players. So, you got assistant coaches and GM and, didn't elaborate on that, but you can presume he's talking about his leadership group. And so, look, I'm not under the impression ever that decisions like this are made with one person and it's autocratic and that. But, I mean, clearly facing the biggest game of the year, the biggest game perhaps because of what happened last year that they could face, that everybody's got to pull in there. And obviously they want the players playing for that goaltender too.
The return of Skinner to the series likely means the return of warm-up mind games. Vitek Vanacek, the Panthers backup, will be probably right back in Skinner's face at the start of warm-ups. He got the game puck, by the way, in the Panthers dressing room. Vanacek did after their win in Game 5. All right, Panthers, a very optional skate today, per usual for them. The Oilers, a full team practice, per usual for them. It was short. No clarity on the lineup, though, Ryan. What's your sense of how Chris Knobloch's handling things?
Yeah, quite often when he's going to make changes, he doesn't shy away from just making those changes and showing them at practice during these full team skates. He'll skate with new lines, he'll skate with new pairings, and that's what they'll roll out with the next night. That's not what we saw here today. I don't want to say it was misdirection. Maybe they haven't figured it out entirely just yet, but they rolled out with a couple of different combinations that I don't think make a lot of sense. It seems to me like they were not necessarily going with their game time lineup. I think we likely see Klingberg in, which means Stetcher out. I think Kapanen comes in. I don't know if that's for Arvidsson or Skinner or what that looks like. And then there's always the question, CJ, about the big guys and if they're going to play together or not. Their numbers have not been great together, but they played a whole bunch of line rushes in this practice with the two of them and Podkolzin as well. So I think he was kind of still holding those cards a little close to his vest.
Well, and look, the Oilers are kind of searching for something here. The Panthers just are who they are. I'm impressed. I guess this is a product of getting to your 3rd straight Stanley Cup final, winning one. I mean, they have this locked right in. A few of the guys mentioned when they get off the plane, they go and do a pool circuit together as part of their recovery, and then basically it's up to each player if he skates. You saw someone like Evan Rodriguez was one of the very few regulars out for the skate. He said he just felt like he needed it for his legs. I mean, it's 2 different approaches. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think partly when you're in Florida's case, it's 315 games deep in 3 years. I mean, I think that there's a lot of trust given to those players. And so no lineup questions on the Florida side. They're just going to roll it as they've been rolling it. And obviously they hope to win it with the Stanley Cup in the building.
Should also mention Nugent Hopkins not on the ice today. It's a maintenance day, and Chris Knobloch believed he would be able to skate. But I think part of it for the Oilers, too, is when they don't feel sharp, they err on the side of practicing, and we saw that when they were here in Florida before. Practice 3 straight days, another full team skate today. They're erring on the side of trying to crisp up, Mark.
A couple Oilers mentioned how great the practice was. Connor Brown said it was fun, great energy. We saw an unlikely person leading the stretch too, Ryan.
Max Jones, yeah. The Oilers, when players get together and stretch at the end of practice, they never have someone in the middle. It's always there's nobody there. Today, Max Jones got the green light to go in. I asked Corey Perry, he said, we just felt like he had a great practice. He accidentally knocked over Jake Wallman. Everyone was laughing. So it was good-natured, and they were making an effort to keep it that way.
Connor McDavid scores his first goal of the series in Game 5, but it feels like the pressure only building on him. He spoke to the media today. What's your sense of where he's at?
Yeah, he was asked about his own play. He said it's not about me. The team has another level that they need to get to, and he said that includes me. So McDavid will want a little bit more from himself. We've seen some moments, but not as much domination, right? And I think that has a lot to do with the Florida Panthers. He talked a lot about the layers of amazing defenders that the Panthers have. I look at the power play, though, as an opportunity for McDavid and Draisaitl and company to gain some of that swagger back. it hasn't been that strong through a lot of this series, and I think they'll probably be searching for some answers and trying to have a little bit more impact, but McDavid very complimentary of the Panthers.
Yeah, and massive, I think, for him to have a big first period, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, he had a good chance early in the last game at home. I mean, if the Oilers can get a lead, I think the complexion changes of how the game will be played. I know Florida's blown a couple leads in this series, but they are really comfortable when they get in that certain style. You know, the other part about Connor I found interesting is, he was asked about the pressure he feels, trying to win a Stanley Cup as the best player. He's like, it's a pretty heavy question. Yeah. He's like, if I thought that way, I'd probably be crippled. And so, Mark, you talk about the pressure. I mean, this is a guy, obviously, when he was 10 years old, he had pressure. It's only amplified as time went on. The last major game we saw him play with a do-or-die scenario, it was, the Four Nations, and he scored in overtime against Team USA. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he can find some extra level that he's aiming for, but he's been pretty good. Let's be clear.
Yeah, no, it's not that he hasn't been, and he's found some moments. The other guy I'm keeping a close eye on is Evander Kane. They really need Evander Kane to check into this series in a meaningful way. He can be a top six forward. He can be a physical force. He hasn't been either of those things in recent games. I can't help but wonder if they don't bounce him up into the top six. He's been in the doghouse the last few games. If maybe they don't say, go do it. We need you, go do it. That's what he's here for.
McDavid shared the podium with Darnell Nurse during his media session. The majority of questions directed at McDavid, especially at the start. When Nurse finally did get a question, it was about McDavid's leadership. McDavid always in the spotlight.